This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Hello, this is Ryan Thomas, and you're listening to the Baja Sessions. Over the last 3 decades, I've lived, worked, and played from the top to the tip of the majestic peninsula of Baja California. And because of this, I've met some incredibly interesting people with equally interesting stories. And today on the Baja Sessions, we're going to chat with one of them.
Ever wonder what it would be like to own or run a manufacturing business in Baja? What about tariffs or NAFTA? How about the border weights and the language barrier? You might be surprised by the number of small manufacturing businesses that currently call Baja home. Steve Tucker owns and operates a manufacturing company called Auto Vac Vacuum Systems that produces industrial vacuum systems in Tecate, Baja California. His products are sold around the globe, and he cannot imagine his business existing anywhere else other than Baja California. Join us today to hear a little bit about all of this and more on the Baja Sessions. We've got Steve Tucker on the podcast today, and Steve, as mentioned earlier, is the owner of a business that functions. Do you function out of both the United States and Mexico? You must if you're in an office in the United States right now.
Yes, we do. So we have U.S. offices, and we have offices in Tecate, Mexico.
There we go. So, yeah, the reason we've got Steve on the podcast today is to dive a little bit into what it's like to own and run or operate a business in Baja. And there's a lot of pros. I'm assuming there's maybe some cons to that. But I think it's an interesting topic that we can dive into here. I have known Steve for a little while, and I'm a little bit familiar with his business, but I'm looking forward to peeling some of the layers back with the listeners and learning a little bit more about what life is like professionally in Tecate, right? That's where your operation is located, yeah?
Yep, that's correct. We're in Tecate, right across the border.
So rather than me try to butcher what it is that you do, I'll say the name of the company, and then if you wouldn't mind, just give us a basic understanding of what's going on down there in Tecate, and maybe even then in the United States, and how the your two locations affect or enhance each other. So it's Auto Vac, right, is the name of the company?
Sure, yes. It's Auto Vac. Auto Vac Vacuum Systems is the name of the company that we operate. We have manufactured. The company started in 1989, and we've manufactured up in the San Diego area for the first probably 10 years, and then decided to move the company down to Baja. So originally it was my parents' company, and I purchased it from them in 2004 with a business partner here, Wes Taggart. We purchased the company, and it was already established in Mexico, and had a small factory down there, about 8,000 square feet, and we've just grown the business, in the last 15 years, pretty substantially.
Okay, well, wait up, you got to back up here. Auto Vac is, I will tell you, is a very telling name for the company, but give us some background on what it is that you're actually manufacturing with the name Auto Vac.
Yeah, so Auto Vac Vacuum Systems, we manufacture industrial vacuum systems for a few different industries. Our main industry is car care, car washes, car rental companies, car dealerships. So what we make is the vacuum systems for those particular establishments. So when you go to a car wash, the main model these days is an express car wash. Here in the San Diego area, we have a number of express car washes, but we do it throughout the world. And basically what the express car wash is, it's self-serve vacuum. So you sit in the car wash tunnel as your car goes through the tunnel and gets washed. Then you drive to a vacuum area and you vacuum yourself. So it's typically between a 5 and an 8 minute process to do that. And that business model has really taken off across the U.S. So we've got hundreds of locations across the U.S. with our equipment installed in it.
Right. So you don't actually own the car washes. You manufacture the equipment that the car wash owners use. Is that the best way to sum that up?
That's the best way to sum it up. That's correct.
And I will say, I know my wife is a member of one of the local ones here. If you're like me and only wash your car once a year, you unfortunately are not benefiting from my automotive hygiene practices. Let's put it that way. But I know, a lot of people are paying for a membership. I think my wife's, it's like $15 a month or something. Unlimited passes through the wash side of it, and then obviously access to the vacuums.
Yeah, that's very popular. That subscription model is taking hold nationwide throughout the car wash market, and it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, well, it seems as if it's a viable business model, especially once they. I mean, I used to work at Body Beautiful when I was in high school, and one of my roles was on the vacuum line. So I think removing the manpower requirement from the business and giving that to the customer, and ultimately letting the customer, decide on the caliber or quality of the service that they want to provide themselves, was a good move on just the industry standpoint. But so back up to Mexico here, you bought the company from your parents in 2004, and they were already operating in Mexico. So it wasn't like you made the decision to move down there from a manufacturing standpoint. You came into it already existing. Is that a accurate statement there?
Yeah, that's correct. My dad moved the company down into Mexico in the late 90s. So
were you involved in it then? Was 2004 your first foray into Baja doing business, or were you already involved with it with the family when in the 90s?
No, I was already involved in it with the family in the 90s. Yeah, I was doing some real estate work. We owned a real estate company and a mortgage company here in San Diego for about 12 years, and that business is what allowed me to purchase the business for my parents when they were finally ready to retire and move on.
But your professional life in Baja started in 2004. Maybe that was a better way to ask the question.
Correct. So the professional, that's when we took over and started switching some things around down there in about 2004.
Well, okay. So the obvious or the skunk on the table here is, what there's a lot of people that hear of people doing business in foreign countries. You started that process in 2004. Ironically, I was a couple of years ahead of you there. I was down in Cabo starting in 2000. Kind of the same scenario, thrown to the wolf, so to speak, to figure it out as a foreigner. So I'm aware of some of the caveats, at least in southern Baja. But what was the process like? I mean, it's got to be in 2004. You're in your early 30s.
Yep, early
and
30s.
A little bit of professional background in the real estate industry, and now all of a sudden you're manufacturing in Baja.
Yeah. So basically, the company when we were in San Diego, it's the main component of any of the products that we create is steel. So we're basically a big metal shop. So it's forming the steel to our products, and the finishing process is one of the most cumbersome in our process that we have. And in San Diego, it was the regulations in California were just tremendous in order to overcome a lot of the regulations that were in California at that time as they were changing. So it was a question of, do we move to, say, Texas is a place that we were looking at, and Tecate made sense because the factory is less than an hour door to door from where we were living at that time. So we ended up going down and investigating and figuring out how to move the company across. At first, it wasn't a straight move. It was more of co-manufacturing. And then the entire company was moved down at the beginning of 2000.
And you have mentioned to me in the past that it I'm going to use the word family affair, which I think is probably the right way to say this. You have some key staff members that are ultimately now part of your family in a certain way. Would you characterize your professional life in, or let me ask it this way: how would you describe the differences in the business life in Baja versus the United States, or are there none from your perspective?
Well, I mean, the business environment is different. A lot of the workers that we hired in San Diego did drive up from Tecate. So as we moved back down to Tecate, we maintained their jobs. We still paid some of the management a U.S. wage to help us make that transition. But as we found that the business really started growing, Tecate was, we've always been a family-owned business since the beginning. So it was started as a mom and pop. It still kind of is a mom and pop today. I've got my brothers that work with me, and the people that we've put in place down in Mexico were actually friends of ours before we went into business with them, and opportunities took hold. And it was one family in particular, the Contreras family down in Tecate, that owned some commercial real estate, and we were leasing from them, and they liked the product and the company so much that they started helping us manage it.
Awesome. And you, you've got a successful business there, but you're in some pretty you're in some good company when it comes to businesses that are operating in Tecate. I mean, global businesses. What are some of those? You're not alone, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, we're not alone. There's a few different organizations that we belong to with the Maquiladora organizations
right.
that are down in Tecate. There's a lot of companies that are actually south of the border that sometimes people don't know,
right?
Especially some San Diego companies, but a lot of national brands that are down in Tecate.
The one I know is Taylor Guitars is down there, right?
Yeah, Taylor Guitars is down there.
And I feel like I've seen like Sanyo or Mitsubishi or big Japanese companies as well. Are they there? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, so you've got Sony. There's not in Tecate. Between Tecate and Tijuana is a corridor. So you've got the Toyota plant that's down there that creates the Tacoma out of it. So that's probably 12 miles from our plant. So that entire corridor, you've got Samsung in Tecate, and we do some business with a lot of these industrial companies as well on the vacuum side for their processes. We put vacuums into their industrial processes. A lot of aerospace companies down in Tijuana that are our clients as well. So it's no longer a lot of these companies, even though they do business in the U.S., they do business all over the world.
Yeah, right. Well, so prior to you operating a business in Baja, and I know, I've now, fortunately, you and I have spent time recreating in Baja together, so you do, it is a place you go to enjoy yourself, actually more than I do nowadays. I'm jealous. But was it a destination or a location that you did recreate in prior to doing business there, or has your affinity for Baja increased the more time you spent there from a business standpoint?
Oh, it's definitely increased the more that I go from a business standpoint. Typically, it was, before doing business there, it was mainly hopping on an airplane and going down to Cabo and doing some fishing. And now that we're in Baja, especially, that we have, very good family and friends in Tecate and Ensenada, Rosarito, Baja North, there's a lot of family all the way down through Baja. So that's opened up a lot of opportunities in recreation to be able to go into some of the smaller areas and have that support. Has been really, really neat to be able to experience Baja kind of as a local, I would say, even though we're guests of the local people there. It's pretty tight knit family that we're involved
I think
with.
what I would echo you saying is that yes, we are guests, we're visitors, we're foreigners, but the open arms that you are welcomed with by the people that are natives, if you will. It's unlike any experience I've ever had in the United States when it comes to relationships and just the genuineness of a human relationship. I find that my Mexican friends are, and you make them quick. At least I did. You kind of just the layers get peeled back quickly, and you have real raw relationship real quick, or I did at least. And I don't find that as easy here in the United States. For some reason, it's a cultural thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, it definitely is a cultural thing. That is for sure.